Hello, Pile 1, to this reading on what you need to start taking seriously. Before we begin, a couple of disclaimers, or a few of them, actually. The first of which is that I cannot make up any truths for you. If anything that I say during this reading simply isn't true for you, please don't let it negate the rest of the reading for you, but understand that that's something that I'm saying that doesn't apply to you is very likely something that I'm saying to help a specific person or a specific group of people tuning into this reading like you. Again, general online reading, so anybody can come on here. It's not a private reading specific to you. So expect for there to be certain parts that aren't all for you. The second disclaimer is that any decisions that have to be made by you are your decisions to make by yourself. I am just a stranger on the internet putting up these readings. I have no power or authority to be making any decisions for you. Neither do the cards. Tarot can really help us clarify any confusing thoughts or feelings we might be having surrounding a decision that we have to make, but that decision ultimately has to be made by us. It is also worth mentioning that tarot is not a replacement for any kind of professional advice or counsel that you might be needing, whether that be legal, medical, psychiatric counsel, whatever it is. Tarot is meant to clarify anything confusing that's internal, but really also meant to be a confirmation of what we to some degree already know, consciously, subconsciously, intuitively, whatever the case is. These things being said, what you need to start taking seriously is, at the core of it, it's friendship, like this card states point blank, but it's coming across as kind of, it all ends up, all three different groups end up in the same place, but to really pinpoint the situation that you're in, it's kind of three separate situations that I'm kind of getting through these cards, and each one's kind of different but the same, and so you kind of have to decide which camp you belong in. So on the one hand, it's that you have a friend or a group of friends that you understand are really good for you and in your life. They've had tremendous impact in your life. They're good influences, whatever the case is. They're good for you. You understand that. They make you feel good. There's nothing, all the vibes are great. And in contrast, there is another group of friends or a friend who is quite the opposite of that. But for whatever reason, you like to hang around them, either because of loyalty or proximity, like you work with them or you're at school with them, or whatever the case is. They just don't, you recognize that contrast between the good people in your life, the good person, and the bad people, the bad person in your life. Now, here's where it kind of separates into a second camp, because if we're talking about a specific friend, it might be a romantic interest. So if it's that you have, like I said, there was three groups. The first two groups dictates that there is someone negative in your life. Whether it's a group that's, camp A of all of you guys, camp B would be a significant other who is the bad influence, or not the bad influence, but what you're recognizing isn't as great, isn't as good as you would like for it to be. And camp C could be either of those things, but there is a good group of people or a good person who is a direct contrast to either that group of friends, the friend, or a significant other. And what you need to start taking seriously is, if you're not part of camp C, where you don't feel like there is something good or good people or a good person to contrast all of those things, then what you need to start taking really seriously is how you're feeling in those groups or with that person, because there might be a focus on your part, an effort for you to only focus on the good things, and you're maybe running out of patience or running out of good things to rely on, and so you're being asked to then stop forcing the excuses, stop forcing the accommodations that you give for these people who might not be accommodating you, or if they do, it comes at a higher cost than you're willing to pay. And so it's that like for all of you, it's that you need to start taking that seriously. But if you're part of Camp C, where there are actual people in your life, or a person in your life who you can recognize really makes you feel good and is helping highlight, really accentuate just how bad these other people or person make you feel, then that's what you need to start taking seriously, those people or that person, because it's those good feelings, it's that good stuff. And mind you, Camp C, that good thing, that good influence doesn't necessarily have to be a person or people. It could absolutely be something that you engage in where you can meet other people. Whatever, friendship is really indicating positive relationships. And so if there are no positive relationships, then what you need to start taking seriously is the lack of them or of one. Guide here in its shadow attribute, because it's coming up reversed, reads: places financial gain and control over imparting spiritual insight. Now, given that there really is nothing else, well, okay, there actually, yes, I was going to say there's nothing else in the reading that indicates you or someone around you being a guide. Actually, yes, there is. You do have the propensity to be a guide and or a leader. But what I'm really getting from this card, it's a representation of those bad relationships or the bad relationship, in that they themselves are the guide. And I'm not really picking up so much on the financial gain and the control over impeding the last part, the imparting spiritual insight. That could be true. There could be a spiritual tinge to those relationships or the relationship. That could be true. I'm not really honing in on that part of it so much as the prioritizing of control and or the if it's not financial, then the physical tangible aspects of the relationship as opposed to the feeling aspects of it. So what do I mean by that? Relationships that care more about the optics, about how something looks, about how they are perceived by other people versus how they're making you feel, versus what's inside of the relationship. It could be that they prioritize how good you look beside them or how good they make you feel. So a prioritizing of gain for the self, something more selfish, as opposed to prioritizing like what's in a healthy relationship, prioritizing the individuals in that relationship, but also their feelings and considering them and their autonomy and their agency and everything that is to be considered about an individual when you love them. And so that's really what I'm getting from guide in its reversed, in its shadow attribute, rather, as it is a reference to those negative relationships or relationship. I'm going to circle back to that because it's also picking up on you a little bit, but I'll come back to that because I want to get into the Lenormand, which very clearly states that the key to all of this conundrum, how you take this seriously, is by isolating yourself from the individual or the individuals who are the false guides, basically, because the key is the answer. Tower is isolation. The gentleman is always a reference to an individual in our lives. So that's definitely where it was clarifying, kind of like it doesn't necessarily have to be a group of friends. It could be an individual, a friend, or a significant other. And then isolation from them, and that isolation being the barrier that will guide you, that will allow you to really find this key, that answer to move forward. You not taking this seriously, because the whole prompt is what you need to start taking seriously. And the fact that you're at this reading and that you can recognize that there's a problem in this relationship or the relationships does indicate that you recognize to some degree that there will be relief or a benefit to moving away from these people. And when you do that, that truth will become really concrete. You'll really be able to grasp that relief and that the difference in energy. And that's especially true if you're part of Camp C, where you do have those good people to get into, that good place to go to. And if you're having both of those things, where there's some time that you spend with, these bad people or person, and then you spend some time over there where you feel good, then you really have, when you move away from those bad things, when you start to put a barrier between you and what you're being told you need to start moving away from, and then what happens is most of your time, more of your attention can be given to this good thing, this person, or people, then more of your life has space for that light, for those good feelings, the good vibes to come in, and that'll really, really change where you're headed. And that's basically what the tarot is saying here with the Wheel of Fortune at the end. The Wheel of Fortune at the end is basically both a promise but also a warning, because it's either or depending on what we do. So, okay, to get into the tarot, the Seven of Pentacles and the Ace of Pentacles are saying a message together. The Seven of Pentacles is... The Ace of Pentacles is the product, the tangible product of what the Seven of Pentacles is. The Seven of Pentacles is movement, situations, things that happen in the physical realm that we then have to like deal with, whether it's a good or a bad thing. So going to school and showing up to every lecture and turning in all of your assignments to the best of your capacity. If you do that, then you will gain your degree. If you do the opposite, where you don't show up and you mess up all of your assignments and you don't pass all of your classes, you might not get that degree. And so that's what you basically reaping what you sow. The Seven of Pentacles is the product of what we have planted. And so the Ace of Pentacles is a representation of that fruit that is happening as a consequence to what we've been doing or what we are doing. The Seven of Pentacles, in essence, is you interacting, staying where you are being guided away from, where you are recognizing you don't really feel comfortable, you don't really feel welcome, and you don't really feel like you want to stay there anymore. And the Ace of Pentacles is the result of that truth, which is your desire for something new, your desire to establish something different. But in addition to that truth of it being a new thing, the Ace of Pentacles is also the negative feelings, the negative results of you staying in these places where you shouldn't be staying, whatever that means to you. That's going to range completely differently depending on your situations. It could range from a lack of money, where this person drains you of your money. It could be a lack of resources. It could be like these people are the person influenced you into spending a large amount of money and now you're like stuck with that bill, or just a consequence that you have to deal with because of what you've been doing, which is engaging with this relationship, these relationships that you know that you shouldn't be. The Magician is you, of course, alchemizing that. But okay, so the Magician, yes, it's represented a representation of you, but it's also a representation of the negative relationship or relationships in your life, how they like along with you in connection with them help create the situation of the Seven of Pentacles. The Seven of Pentacles is a representation of the result of your guys' connection, or rather a representation of your guys' connection. The Ace of Pentacles is a result of that connection. And the Magician is how those people, that person, uses the negative feelings, the relationship itself as a means of maintaining the relationship, keeping you around. It's something that they can create something with. The relationship that they have with you, they gain a lot from it. It could be financial. It could be just kind of like I was saying earlier, you make them look really, really good. You're really impressed because you're so impressive, because you're so whatever the case is, you elevate them by proximity. So there's something that this person, these people really do. They alchemize what you put into the energy, what you bring to the table, in essence. There's something that these people, this person does, and it gains them something. And what that creates, and these last two cards are basically, if we continue this thread, I'll come back to it and talk about it as a representation of you. But if we're continuing with the Magician and being a reference to this bad relationship or bad relationships, the result being the Four of Cups, kind of like how he's lifting, kind of unmasking someone, and there's a ghost back there. It's a skeleton. There's nothing back there in essence. And here's you being like, oh, there's nothing there. What do you mean these people suck? What do you mean these people who have been draining me of my energy and who make me feel like shit ended up being shitty people? How could that be? And it's the drama, right? It's like, okay, but can you be really dramatic? We've been giving you all of these hints, right? And so the Wheel of Fortune being, in essence, one of the interpretations, the first interpretation being the bad ending, where if you continue down this path and you continue to surround yourself with shitty people, and this is true whether or not you have those good and positive people in your life, if you continue to make space for shitty people, that is who you will end up with. And if you end up with shitty people, you will in essence end up alone. Yeah. So if you continue down this path, if you do not take this seriously, if you continue to make excuses for these people who really have exhausted all of your consideration and patience, then you're going to end up with nothing. You'll end up with people who will leave you the second it's inconvenient for them. So, and that again, that's true if even if you have those good people in your life, because guess what? Good people, when they are, even if they're not like spiritually or faithfully aligned, if they're genuinely good people and they're about themselves and bettering themselves, they're gonna recognize someone who isn't doing what they're doing, which is on a forward progression, on an upward trajectory, not continuous. Obviously, everything's cyclical. It's not about always continuing up. If we're all human, and I'm more than positive that if these positive people exist in your life, then they know that. Then they're and if they know that, they're gonna recognize you not being able to keep up, and they will act accordingly. They're gonna leave you because you're weighing them down. You're kind of it's kind of coming through this way. It's so rude, but you're kind of dead weight. And they're loving and they're considerate, so they won't ever make you feel that way. But in essence, they will be guided to whatever degree to move away from you because of what you're engaging in. So yeah, now going back, and if it's that the magician is a representation of you, and sorry, it's not that if the magician is a representation of you. Moving forward, the magician for all of you represents, yes, those people, but it also represents you. That's true for all of you. The magician representing you is the solution to how to start taking this seriously. The magician, in essence, is your guides, divinity, if you don't believe in those things, life itself, whatever assures you. It is assuring you that you have the means to alchemize all of this negativity. All of the things that have sprouted have been a result from these things that you've been engaging in. You have everything within you to really alchemize your life, whether just, moving away from them. If it's just, that's at the minimum, at the maximum. If this relationship has been like traumatic, has been to an extent something that has set the precedent for how you think and how you engage in life and how your outlook on life. The magician is that promise that your life can change. Your life can be completely different than what you're imagining now, but it's up to you. The magician is someone who has the power, but the magician doesn't just, this magician's just sitting there. I don't really like this depiction of the magician. I feel like it's kind of racist with the turban. But beyond that, I don't like that he's sitting, because usually the magician is recognized as being an active participant in the magic that he's or she's performing or they're performing. And that's the point of the magician, being an active participant in the magic creation, in the act of creation with divinity, with life, whatever it is that you believe in. And so the magician is not only the assurance that you have the connection to divinity, to life, to whatever assures you to alchemize, but also that you can alchemize. That if you feel like you can't do it, if this is like a financial thing where there's a bit of financial abuse and you feel like you will not succeed, you won't be able to make it out there, the magician is saying, yes, you can. Now, nowhere in these cards or anywhere in life are we promised an easy way out. That's not for all of you. For some of you, it is as simple as just moving away and putting some distance between you and these people, this person. But for some of you, it is going to be difficult. Whatever the case is, wherever you're at, the magician is a promise from whatever you tune into that you can do this, that they are with you, that you have a connection directly to them that allows for you to alchemize in whatever way you desire. The Four of Cups, then, is your recognition. Again, it's kind of like before, it's the recognition of what isn't there. And instead of you being this dramatic person, you're this person back here who's really unmasking those around you and revealing them for what they are. This card could be indicating some type of confrontation. You will know if that needs to happen. Obviously, that's not the case for all of you. For some of you, you really just need to put that boundary up and leave them alone and let them go to hell. But for some of you, that is going to be necessary. A confrontation in which everything is revealed. And even if that happens 10 years from now, if you have to plan it, if it's just serendipitous, whatever the case is, it could be indicating some type of confrontation, however necessary that is. And regardless of whether that confrontation is there or not, the Four of Cups is a result of the unmasking is a result of the alchemizing that you're doing. Part of that alchemizing is accepting that truth that you're being told, not only in friendship, not with the card friendship, I mean, with all of these things that I'm saying, the guidance, the intuition that you've been receiving about these relationships. But kind of like how I was saying, the magician is a promise that there is a connection between you and whatever guides you. That's also what I was, to come back to guide, in its shadow attribute, I was kind of getting it as someone who's a guide, but who is blocked from the wisdom that provides them that capacity to be a guide. So you being the magician, but in these relationships, that part of you, your intuition, your strength, all of those things are watered down or really snuffed out, basically. And in you accepting these truths and accepting your role as an active participant in your life's creation, and therefore it's up to you to do whatever you need to do in order to create a better life for yourself. In you accepting that role, then you're also in blocking that connection, and then you can really take your place as a guide, whether that's just a guide for yourself in your life as you guide yourself safely through relationships and to better things and away from these things, or maybe a guide to other people, whether that's like a lot of people, or just you being a guide to someone later on who needs guidance through maybe something similar to this experience, where if it's that you're leaving a toxic relationship, maybe in the future, in doing this, you'll gain the proper wisdom and the proper experiences to then later be able to help other people like yourself who need help out of those situations and who just don't have the resources, the confidence, whatever it is. There's something to that, where part of the consequences, part of the results of you putting in the work to alchemize something better is you rising to a more elevated place in people's lives, however that is. It could be, again, a guide where you're guiding people through with wisdom, but it could also be that your demonstration of strength in all of this, or the strength that develops in character and self through all of this, is really something that like inspires people, that people are like, oh wow, like that person, they're just so strong, whether they know about these things or not. It could just be something that you carry with you, and that in and of itself is something that guides people, whether you really recognize it or not. And that's what the Wheel of Fortune is basically saying, that that's the good ending, where if you do accept the task of alchemizing, of becoming an active participant of creation, then 1 becomes 10. You elevate, but you also gain a much grander, a much wider scope of understanding and vision of not only the world, but life itself, of love, of whatever your situation is, of friendship, of, again, that wisdom that really guides you to be something elevated, to be someone elevated. That'll really become a concrete part of who you are. If you really alchemize and really do the work to move away from the bad relationships, the bad things, it's really going to show up for you in the future in a really, really positive way. To end this reading, this mini divvy card, this is the first time using him. The cold spot. If something feels off, it probably is. So again, back to the whole guidance that you've been receiving about these situations. You have been getting clear messages, whether it's like from divinity, where it's just not just intuition. I don't mean to say it that way, like to minimize it, but I just mean on one end of the spectrum, those messages that you're receiving, the feeling that something's off. It could be a feeling, an intuitive feeling, or it could be actual evidence, tangible evidence, actual things that are happening right in front of you that are telling you something's off here. You should get up. You should not sit here anymore and go find somewhere better to sit. And if you do have positive people or places to go and sit at, go and sit there and spend more time there. That's where you need to be at. My friend, I hope that this helped, and I hope that I catch you on the next one. Bye. Welcome, Pile 2, to this reading on what you need to start taking seriously. Before we begin, a few disclaimers, the first of which is that I cannot make up any truths for you. If anything that I say during this reading simply isn't true for you, don't take it as such, and don't let it negate the rest of the reading for you. Instead, understand that what I'm saying that doesn't apply to you is meant to be specific to a specific person or a specific group of people, and it's meant to help them. And again, shouldn't negate the reading for you. The second disclaimer is that I cannot make any decisions for you. Decisions that are yours to make are yours to make. Tarot and us as readers, we can help clarify any confusion surrounding any feelings or thoughts we might have around the decision that we have to make for ourselves. But at the end of the day, like I keep on repeating, the decision is yours to make. Lastly, I do like to mention that tarot is not a replacement for any kind of counsel or help that you might actually need from a professional, legal counsel, medical, psychiatric help that you might need for whatever situation that you are in. If the situation requires those things, then go for those things. All of these things being said, let's get into what you need to start taking seriously. And in essence, there has been a shift that happened in the past, however long ago it was or however recent. And the shift took you from a place of seeming stability or seeming joy. And this thing that happened where it's coming through as the gaining of some type of knowledge. Like you learned something or you found out about something, and that caused this shift, which took you again from a place of stability or joy or something seemingly good, and it kind of wreaked havoc on you. It took you into a place of chaos and disarray. And okay, that happened, and whatever is going on there is going on there. That's not so much what this reading is about. It's just that this reading wants to highlight that aspect of the situation that we're touching on, pretty much just to help you to decide whether this reading is for you or not. So if that rings true for you, then welcome, you're in the right reading. What you need to start taking seriously is how responsible you are to then maneuver your way from this place of chaos and disarray, maybe not back to where you were, because maybe that's not worth going back to, but definitely it's about creating some sense of order, some sense of direction, some sense of relief for you from that last shift that happened, because there seems to be an incapacity, an unwillingness, an inability to move from that difficult shift that you went into, and you kind of do seem stuck there. Obviously, with the first card here, the shift card is where we're getting that whole interpretation. But teacher here, in its light attribute, it's coming up upwards. It reads ability to communicate knowledge, experience, skill, or wisdom. True, yeah, that's what a teacher is. What I'm getting from this card doesn't come from those words so much as it's coming from two separate things. The first thing, the image where we see this, it looks like a woman, but it could be a genderless figure, holding a globe, and it's split open, and there's these other little facets inside of it. Kind of how like a teacher can break apart a subject to show you its working parts and explain it all to you to create the whole of the lesson. And that's kind of what I'm getting image-wise, where it's kind of up to you to get to the nitty-gritty, to get into the details, to break down, like a teacher has to, what it is that happened, what it is that you're feeling. And not only those things, but like a teacher, create a lesson plan, create some sort of structure to move yourself from A to B. A teacher moves you from the beginning of the year when you don't know the things that you're going to learn that year, and then carefully through time as they need to teach you what they need to as the year progresses, so that at the end of the year they move you to a place of more knowledge, a different place, a shift. The second thing, teacher brings to mind how often they are required to silence a room, and this is true for all ages. Even the older kids need to be kind of regulated, need to be kind of brought down to simmer in certain aspects sometimes. And so that's what comes to mind, how there's the classroom in disarray is your life, and it's that you're the teacher, it's your life, it's your classroom, it's your responsibility then to command the attention of everybody of your life, basically command the attention of your life and create order there. If that's about going into each individual aspect of your life and reordering it, even if that's going to take forever, it's about putting the effort and the time in necessary to again create order from that disorder, from that disarray. To get into the Lenormand is basically how you're going to do this, and it's not something super specific. But okay, the whip is something continuous, but yeah, like the whip is a punishment. The whip isn't something pleasant. The whip is something that we take on when we want to hurt something. So, kind of like how in the olden days, think of the cartoonish lion tamer with the stool and the whip, and the whip is meant to be like discipline, like this threat of pain to the lion so that it behaves itself and does what it needs to. Obviously barbaric. That's not so much. I mean, it's okay. You're kind of in that metaphor. You're the lion tamer. The lion is that disorder. The lion is that thing that you feel is out of your control, that you might feel like you can't take control over, but that you actually can. It's your the lion is actually you. So yes, you can. The mice in the center is that disarray that we're talking about. The order, the disorder, sorry, the mess, the shift that you went into, that you're stuck in. And so look at the mess on the table, right? And so whip is the discipline and the effort that it takes to clean that mess. The stars here at the other end, yeah, is reflective of, like, I'm sure, like the sparkles, kind of like a star sparkles and clean things sparkle. I just saw that right now. But more so, what I got from the stars is your hopes, your wishes for what it is that you want out of your life. So it could be partially that this isn't for all of you, but part of your hopes and wishes now is for, like, if you haven't gotten fully to that place where you're ready to move on from the thing that you shifted from, like let's say that was a relationship or a really good job, and you're still mourning that and you're not fully over it. If part of your hopes is to return to something back to that, the stars is basically saying that you will find something new to move yourself towards, a new North Star, so to speak. There's, once you clean this disarray that has been created by that shift, you'll actually start to also clearly see that those things weren't what you really deserved, or where you really needed to be, even if it was a good thing. Where you're headed, where you will end up as you start to do the work of cleaning things up and creating order where there is none, you'll realize that you've ended up somewhere better. The stars, in essence, for all of you now, is the promise of the better situation ahead of you once you've cleaned up this mess. I mean, once we say it that way, once we understand that it is our responsibility to clean up the mess. I mean, it's easier said than done, right? Like, we can understand that once we do the work, then good, we've done the work and we can benefit from the fruits of that labor. But when we're here, when we're stuck in it, in the mice, when we're stuck in the mess, it's really difficult to see past it. And so, at the very least, what this card and really what this whole reading is trying to do for you is assure you that the mess that you're currently in, the mess that's been created, is not all that's possible for you. In fact, you know that to be true because you haven't always been here. You did know some sense of stability or joy sometime in the past, and that can be created again because those experiences, those feelings, you felt them. And although it was the experiences around you and out of your control that elicited those feelings in you, at the end of the day, you can experience those things again. Maybe not in the same way because you're having them for something different, but those same things, those same feelings, those same hopes that you had going into that first thing are still within you, and you can get back there again. It's just that right now there's a mess and you got to take care of it. The tarot cards are basically an elaboration of this entire reading, because the Four of Wands is that stability that I'm talking about that existed in the past. But the Four of Wands is also regarded as some type of homecoming, of something arriving to where we are at. And this thing that's arriving, it's something we're aware of. Because sometimes things arrive and we don't know it. Like a truth that's there for us to discover, and even though it's like right in our face, if we're not seeing it clearly, then it's arrived, but we don't know it. But the Four of Wands upwards is definitely an arrival that we are conscious of and that we're bringing in, we're welcoming in. And the Ace of Swords next to that is what's arriving, which is a truth. It's a message, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a message, like a communicated truth, like someone coming with some gossip, like, hey, the person that you're with isn't who you think they are, and here's the proof. It could be something like that, but it's just the Ace of Swords is whatever came in that created the shift. That, so like if it was a job and what forced you to leave from there was a recognition of, you weren't super in line with their ethics, or something that they were doing to someone that like you respect, or whatever the case is, it's that truth. Whatever came in that really created the shift, the Ace of Swords is the beginning of that shift into chaos from that stability or joy that you were experiencing with the Four of Wands. So the Four of Wands is both. It's both the stability, but also the incoming thing that you're welcoming. And the Ace of Swords is the thing that came in to kind of wreak havoc to that stability. The Seven of Cups reversed is then the confusion that was created, probably emotionally, but not necessarily just emotionally, through what happened with that Ace of Swords. So that confusion, the shift, the disorder, where if the Seven of Cups were upward, it's still a lot of things to process, and a lot of things, it can be a confusion. But with it upwards, we're taking the time to consider all of our options to make the best one. Reversed, then, it's us being so overwhelmed by whatever else, and here in this situation, it's that shift that we're talking about, that there really is no space. You just don't have the capacity or the willingness to focus on all of the things that you need to focus on to really create the order that's being asked for here. Now, here with these last two cards, there's one specific message that's for some of you, and then we'll get to how these two cards are interpreted for all of you. For some of you, and it doesn't matter what this last thing was, it very likely was a relationship though, because the Two of Cups reversed does indicate unwise unions, whether that could just be physical, you're out there acting, having your fun, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Please do so. But that it's coming up reversed is a warning that you might not be. You're not being as careful as you could be, and that could be as something physical, where you might want to wrap up some more before you go out and do that. You might not. You might want to be a little bit more discerning with who you're taking to bed. If it's not that, then it's and if you are being safe, if it's not that danger, then it's that the people that you're engaging with, although physically safe, aren't energetically safe. They're not the best kind of people that you should really be surrounding yourself by. So it's not so much a warning of like, hey, stop having your fun. It's about being wiser with your fun. Now, to some of you, the wisdom is to stop having your fun, because you know that for you specifically, having fun isn't the best thing for you. I'm talking to those of you who use physical union as a means to cope, and now you have gotten used to using it as a crutch to make yourself feel better about yourself, or whatever the case is. Then that's not for you. Then obviously what's being said here, the Two of Cups reverse, is that you need to stop those unions, because they're not doing you any good. So you need to discern for yourself if it's true for you that you're out there having your fun. Is it hurting you? Like, genuinely, are you feeling better after it? If you are, you're feeling good because you're having fun and you've been stuck in this relationship that was shitty. Great, please keep on doing that, but be safe, because the Two of Cups is coming up reversed here. And so, wrap it up some more, or be more discerning with who you're doing these things with. Don't just, oh, they're cute, that's all the criteria there is. No, there needs to be more criteria. If it is true that you recognize you don't feel good after all of these unions, that you actually do feel worse, and that this isn't something you should be engaging in, then the Two of Cups is basically telling you, like, stop it. You need to stop that, because you're not only hurting yourself, you have, in this case, the capacity to hurt someone else, because the Two of Cups is an equal union, an equal giving to someone of what you have. So again, that danger that where we were talking about wrapping up, because giving someone something that you have, but if it's not that, if you're not giving someone anything and they're not giving you anything, physically, then it could be energetically, it could be emotionally, like where y'all run the danger of catching feelings for someone who has no interest in developing something because you guys are just having fun. So discern that as you will. Now, regardless of which one of those two, and I'm still here for the specific, those of you who are out there having fun, the Knight of Wands is a reflection of it. The cards are trying to show you who you're being. And the Knight of Wands at the end of this whole journey that started with the Four of Wands. The Knight of Wands is a reflection of who you are. It's the cards telling you that you having your fun, whether it's safe for you or not, it's not progressing you anywhere. Yes, the Knights upward are about progression, are about movement, but see how between these cards we went into two different suits, and how shifts are all about moving from one place into a completely different one. All these cards here at the end, for those of you specifically who are out there having fun, that fun that you're having, if it's good for you and it makes you feel good, but understand that it's not the cure to your ailment, it's just a band-aid. And for those of you who the physical unions does hurt you and you recognize that you need to move away from it, the Knight of Wands is basically saying you're actually just perpetuating the same circumstance, the same routine, the same cycle that kept you in this first place, and this first place all complacent and accepting of what it was, despite the fact that you were supposed to move out of there. Because even if it was good, it ended. I mean, if it was good, then this truth that would have come in wouldn't have destroyed it. Anything that is rightfully good, that is divinely good, that is whatever you believe in, it's just good, then the truth cannot destroy it. And if the truth came in and destroyed this thing, then it's because it needed to. And so the Knight of Wands is basically saying you're not moving anywhere. Now, returning to the rest of us, if that isn't true for you, where the Two of Cups is physical union with other people, then we continue with the trend of how the Seven of Cups reversed was this overwhelming confusion where we didn't have the capacity to really pinpoint and spend the time to create order in all of the different facets that we need to create them in. The Two of Cups reversed is then saying two things. One, and you have to decide if both of these things are true for you or if just one of them is true for you. The Two of Cups reverse is saying that you need to then prioritize only some of those things that you feel you need to prioritize. Kind of basically saying your attention doesn't need to be as far spread as you think it does. Another thing that it could be saying is some alone time. Not necessarily that like the people right now in your life are bad per se. That could be true. I don't know that. If that's true, I never say this, but if that's true, you might want to sit with the pick a card portion of this reading, because there might be another reading for you regarding that. But regardless of what I'm really getting from the Two of Cups is just the value that you'll get from spending some time alone, uninfluenced by the people around you and just people in general. Spending some time alone to really take stock of what it is that you're feeling. All of this disarray that we're talking about. Feeling it, taking stock of it, processing what you need to away from people, and doing it in solitude, not only for the privacy and the intimacy of it, but also so that, because sometimes people don't understand that we still feel a certain way about certain things, and they want so badly for us to get over it, either because they're bored of listening to us about it, or because they genuinely care about us and they want for us to be over it. But at the end of the day, you're the person who's experiencing it. You're the person who's actually having to go home with all of these feelings. So then the Two of Cups, again, that solitude, that taking some time away from whoever you need to be away from, not because they're bad, but just because you need to do this alone. You need to do this without someone. You're still worrying about that. You just need to do this. You just need to do that. And it's like they could be well-intentioned, but at the end of the day, it's something that you need. It's something that will benefit you to just process this, and then having processed that and doing whatever you need to do with the disarray and creating order there. Creating relief, and then being able, in essence, creating a better quality of life, which isn't that what we're all going for? The Knight of Wands, then, following that, I was only getting the Knight of Wands as a warning for those of you who the Two of Cups was a physical union with other people. But at the end of the message of if it's that we're interpreting the Two of Cups for all of you, where it's a relief of some sort from the Seven of Cups energy, so moving from 7 to less, taking less of it on, then the Knight of Wands is talking about how then you are enabled to move, to progress from this, because your burden is lightened. You're not carrying as much. Your efforts, your attention isn't as far spread, and so you can move more easily, more intentionally away from these things because you have more freedom to do so, more attention, more energy to do so. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say about those cards. Let's get then to wrap this reading up into the last little message for you. That I'm using the mini Divi deck, which is just these cute little ghost messages. Closet Ghost. Seek out the inner truths that long to be awakened. So, okay. I don't need to say anything. Seek out the inner truths that long to be awakened. Grasp onto those truths and allow for them to guide you through this mess, away from this disarray, to a place where you can step into your capacity to create that order. Show yourself that you can create order. It's there. Like, that work is there waiting for you to do. No one else can do it. No one else is going to do it. You can pray all you want for someone to come in and take care of all of it. At the end of the day, it's gonna have to be you. My friend, I really hope that this helped, and I hope to catch you on the next one. Bye. Welcome, Pile 3, to this reading on what you need to start taking seriously. Before we begin, some disclaimers, the first of which is that I cannot make up any truths for you. If anything that I say during this reading is simply not true for you, don't take it as such and don't let it negate the rest of the reading for you. But instead understand that what I'm saying that isn't true for you might very well be something specific for a specific person or a specific group of people for whom that might actually help. Don't let it negate the rest of the reading for you. The second disclaimer is that I cannot make any decisions for you. Those decisions, any of your decisions, are yours to make and yours alone. Tarot can help clear up any confusion that we might have surrounding a decision that we have to make, whether in our feelings or our thoughts, but the decision, again, ultimately up to you. Also worth mentioning that tarot is not a replacement for any kind of professional help that you might need, whether that's counsel or advice, legal, medical, psychiatric, whatever the case is. Whatever your situation calls for, act accordingly, get the help you need. Tarot, again, can help clarify certain things and can help confirm what we already know, whether consciously, subconsciously, or intuitively, whatever the case is. These things being said, what you need to start taking seriously is your lack of faith. Now, if you've never had faith, if you aren't like you've never involved yourself in any type of spirituality or religion, or you've just always been about the cold hard facts, then the faith that we're talking about is the opposite, I guess, optimism, the opposite of skepticism, where you actually believe that things can go your way. If you've had a faith, then it's not about a return to the specific faith that you've had in the past so much as a reconnection to the belief in more than what's in front of you. However that's true for you, whether you've gone full-blown where you just don't believe in anything beyond what you can see or feel. Thank you for being here. What an honor to be reading for you. Or you're just the type of person who has retained some sort of faith, but not by way that you learned it or what you've had in the past. What's true for all of you is that there does seem to be, at the moment, a complete lack of faith in, whether it's a faith in divinity, in life, in ourselves, or that things will go well. There's, again, really staple to the reading, a lack of faith. And that's what you really need to start taking seriously, because that lack of faith is actually costing you so much more than you realize. What is coming up at the root of what you need to start taking seriously is transformation. And that's answering, or rather highlighting or shining a light on what's possible for you at the other side of engaging with faith better, or creating a better relationship with faith. And although it's what's possible, it's also the vehicle by which we're going to get to those blessings, to the better things. So transformation is basically saying the transformation of your current circumstance, which is really flaring up your skepticism, really flaring up your doubt. A transformation of that situation is possible. But what it's going to take is a transformation of self. And isn't that at the core of all healing journeys? It's almost cliche to say it, but that's where we're starting out with that transformation card. It's both the promise and the direction. Warrior in its shadow attribute reads, trading ethical principles for victory at any cost. Indifference to the suffering inflicted on others. I'm sure you're not inflicting suffering on others. And if you are, I'm really not getting anything in these cards about that. The point, or rather, what I'm getting from the Warrior reverse card is that first part kind of basically saying that the ends justify the means. Where you might have that mentality. Where for you, it could be as simple as kind of how I phrased it earlier, that common phrase of, if I can't see it, I don't believe it. If I can't see it or touch it, you only believe in what you see or is physically tangible. That being the means by which you maintain your... Okay, so the way I wanted to word it was that the ends justify the means. Your complete faith in anything, you not believing anything you can't tangibly touch or feel, that being the means by which you maintain the healing you've had to do in response to, I don't know, it could be religious trauma. There is a lot of that here. But it's also, it doesn't necessarily have to be that, but rather anything in the past that really set in concrete that skepticism, that doubt, that movement away from faith, whatever it was for you. You keep yourself safe, per se, by not engaging with anything that might make you look like a fool, because you've probably been made to look like a fool in the past. And if not that, then there was some severe consequence to the faith that you had in whatever you had in the past. And so Warrior reversed is that trauma, that the response that you've had and how you now carry yourself in response to those dire circumstances in the past. And they're now being highlighted with this circumstance you're currently in, which is again flaring up your doubt, your lack of faith. With the Lenormand cards, we have Crossroads, the Clover, and the House. The Crossroads is a choice. It's a choice, but it's also a long road, and all of the choices that one will encounter on that long road. And Clover, it's traditionally associated with luck and chance and, good fortune. But those things are things you cannot see. Luck and fortune are things that you cannot tangibly, logically explain. They're just chance. They're just synchronicities. They are beyond our understanding, and they're part of what faith is. So Clover here is a representation of that faith. And at the end is the House, which is stability, which is the situation that you're currently in and that you've been perpetuating by maintaining your skepticism. The House is a transformation of all of that. So to speak, the best possible ending. What I want to point out before I dive into it is how in the Clover we have a rainbow, which connects the Crossroads to the House. And what I really get from that is how the Clover is, there's the path that you're on, that you see clearly and you're making your choices. It's the life that you're currently leading and that you've been leading and you're walking on this path. And the Clover represents how on this path that you're on, you look off to the side and it's not a road, it's not even a path, but you can see that if you wanted to, you could, it's clear enough, the grass or whatever you're picturing is low enough, it's clear enough that you can walk there if you wanted to. But it's not a path, it's not a road. You don't actually know where it's going to lead, but inside of you, the faith, the belief in you is like, oh, but I want to go there. There's something about that. So the clover really representing the faith that does exist within you, the desire to believe, the faith that you do hold on to, whatever it is, that's what it is. And how it's guiding you away from what feels safe, from what feels like something you've been doing or maintaining or that you have wanted. And the house is how, like, the crossroads leads off to the distance in a completely different direction from the house. And it's almost like the only way to get to the house is by means of this faith, by means of this clover. And in fact, when we follow the clover, in the background of the clover, we see that mountain that we see in the crossroads. So being directed by our faith rather than our map, our plans, our conscious, logical, planning and the way that we're moving in that way, and the clover being the opposite of that, the pull away from that towards what to some degree you can feel is something that you want or that feels good or that you deep down feel is better. The tarot basically shows how the current circumstance that you're in is something that's perpetuated. And if it's not that, you're actively perpetuating, maintaining this lifestyle, it's then something that you've normalized to the point where you just kind of abide by this flow that isn't to your liking, but that you don't really know how to logically, when you think of a logical plan to get out of this situation, you can't come up with one because there is no logical plan out of it. There's only one through faith. But faith does require sacrifice because it basically states that you have to surrender the part of you that needs control and understanding every aspect of everything that works. And it can go beyond that. Faith can also mean, sometimes it can go to the extent of you existing in your faith, whatever degree that is to you, whether it's the faith that you connect to something divine or a faith in self, a faith in that things can get better. When you really sit in that and claim it and it's yours, that can drive people away, either because they start to think that you're corny or because they just don't vibe with it or they just don't like that you feel that way and they're threatened by it. Whatever the case is, having faith, to have faith, to believe, does come with consequences, and you're aware of that. And in fact, it could be because of that awareness that you're so comfortable maintaining whatever it is that you're maintaining, living however it is that you're living, because that's just what you've created and that's what you're comfortable in, despite the fact that you're getting so many signals, so much evidence in your current circumstance that points you to the fact that you're not actually fully happy here. The Five of Pentacles reversed indicates to me, the dire situations that existed in the past, however long ago. They could be from it could be that a scarcity mindset, that skepticism could be something that you kind of grew up around, and so you were never raised to have any type of faith. And if you were, then that lack of faith was a part of some type of scarcity. So the Five of Pentacles really talking about some type of scarcity in the past, whether that was a physical scarcity, a hard childhood, or a scarcity of faith that existed in the past, whether it wasn't around you or you just didn't have it, whatever the case is. And the Eight of Pentacles being the thing that's created from what is normalized, because the Eight of Pentacles depicts, traditionally outside of this deck, depicts a pattern being a habit being kept, a pattern being formed, something that's kept up. And so that scarcity that existed in the past has been kept up and brought into the present. The Seven of Pentacles next to that is the product of whatever comes before it. So what comes before it is that scarcity that you're maintaining. So the product of that scarcity that you're maintaining is the Four of Pentacles reversed. The Four of Pentacles upwards is it's either a feigned success or a barely grasped success. A success that is technically a success, but that you don't actually gain the benefits of because it's barely a success. This could be a job that barely pays you. This could be an outcome that you worked for, that you, once you got it, you realized wasn't everything that you thought it was going to be. And so reversed, it's that truth that it's not enough being so big that the benefit that you used to get from it, whether it was a degree, or like the job, whatever it is, it's not good enough anymore. And so now it's out of balance. It's out. You no longer want to maintain this success because you understand that it's not actually a success. It might have been in the past, but it no longer is. And the Hanged Man, I mean, I don't know if you've noticed that all of the first 4 cards were all Pentacles cards. And we end with the Hanged Man, a major card. So all of the same suit, all of these things that you're maintaining, a perfect example of that 8 of Pentacles energy that I'm talking about. The things that you're maintaining, the things that you just keep up, the habits, the normalized lifestyle, whatever it is. And in response to that, because in the Hanged Man we have a rope, so it's kind of like a lifeline. The rope that's being thrown to you exists completely outside of your realm of comfort, which is here being depicted by the Pentacles, which is very apt because the Pentacles are the physical, tangible realm. And I mean, look at the dude in the Hanged Man, looking at the rope that's being thrown to him. Now, mind you, yes, it's a horror deck, so it's a noose, and so it makes sense why this specific man is kind of afraid of that noose. Yeah, sure. But symbolically, that noose is actually the rope that's being thrown to you, like for you to grasp onto and for you to be tugged away from this circumstance that you've grown comfortable in. But there you are reacting like that to faith, reacting because that's what it's requiring, right? A faith, whether in something bigger than you, to be led by your intuition, by your guides, whatever the case is, or just a belief in that something more than this, what you currently have, can exist. So a scarcity mindset. And so that reaction, that's you reacting to that possibility that things might exist in a different way, to the possibility that you might start to follow your intuition, that you might start to follow a more spiritually guided path, because that's what you're being guided towards. Like, again, you have this beaten path, and then you have the clover path, the beaten path being the Pentacles here, the clover energy being the Hanged Man, that offer that's there, that pathway that's, you can see, but it isn't actually a pathway, and it would require that you kind of, it requires a little bit of hardship, yes, but that you are, regardless of that risk, that you can tangibly see, that you can physically see. And again, we've determined that you are very much grasped onto the tangible, which you can physically see. Although the risk is there, your complete lack of faith is why it's so scary. Because if you had faith, whether in yourself or life or whatever, divinity, then you'd be able to look at that risk and be like, you know what, but I have what I believe in. I do believe I can make it through this. I do believe that my guides can get me through this. I do believe that life has better plans for me. Whatever it is, you applying belief to the skepticism, to the current norm, as a kind of like as a defiance, as a rebellion from what exists, because that's what it feels like. It feels like, for you to stand in faith, for you to actually believe in yourself or whatever you're being asked to believe in, does feel like a complete contrast from what you're currently comfortable and in. And that's the point. That's kind of the way that it's just so succinct, right? How I mentioned that the Pentacles cards, perfect description of like the current place that you're in, and the Hanged Man being all about faith and sacrifice, and that's what's being applied here, asked of you here, and the crossroads and the clover, the reflections, it's also clear. It almost assures me that you're getting so many messages. There's so much evidence that you have that's guiding you or pulling you away from what you're comfortable in. But again, you're maintaining it for those reasons are yours. Those reasons are yours, and therefore you're to deal with. But the point is, what this reading is really highlighting is not the reasons for why you do it, but rather that the blessings, you won't have them until you apply faith, because that is what's required of you specifically. There are people who don't need to apply faith ever, either because they have the resources or their life was meant to be something different. They don't need faith. And you might be comparing yourself to someone like that, where you're seeing people who have no faith and they're succeeding, and it's like, well, if they didn't have to have faith to succeed, why should I? Well, because your life specifically requires some faith. You specifically, the way your life is meant to pan out and the way that you're meant to get to blessings is only by means of faith. So until you have faith, you cannot have the blessings that you feel you deserve, because You feel you deserve them because you, like all of us, we all feel, whether we're aware of it and putting effort towards it, we're all conscious of that aligned self. However far away we are from being aligned, whatever, however it is that you define aligned. When I mean aligned, is like the best possible version of yourself, the best possible outcome. We are always working towards that, however hard we're working towards that. And so what's true for all of you, despite what faith means for you, is that you do need to start creating a contrast to that skepticism. It's not working for you. All of these pentacles, and look at how we move from 5, and then we move to 8, and then from 8 to 7, and then from 7 to 4. So out of order and decreasing, because we start with the 5 and then we go down to the 4, we start with the 8 and then we go to the 7. It's decreasing. So it's not a positive energy. It's not something that you want to be in, but you stay there because it's what's comfortable, because it's what you know, whatever it is. If this isn't working, if it hasn't worked, if you're starting to see clearly that this isn't working for you, then why not try a little faith? Now, there is something specific for those of you that are experiencing a bit of like a resistance to faith because of experiences that you've had in the past. The 4 of Pentacles, look how it's depicted. I love it because it shows, one, the Capitol building in the back, which is a government building, which is symbolic of the status quo and the maintaining of that status quo, and this being controlled by it, being controlled by like puppet strings, basically. Here in the specific imagery, it's like aliens, right? But it's a card, it's a tarot card. So the symbolism of the status quo and the ways that we abide by it, that we are forced to do certain things that we might not feel comfortable in because that's what's expected or the norm or whatever the case is. And so the 4 of Pentacles I really saw as, for those of you who it's like religious trauma, for those of you who like had bad experiences with faith in the past, where the rope of the Hanged Man does kind of remind you of the ropes of the past that bound you to a certain way of being that you've worked so hard to move away from. And first of all, I am so sorry that you went through that. That is rough, and it does set a huge precedent, a huge amount of work that we have to undo and unlearn, and in order to engage in a healthier way of living. And so it makes perfect sense for you to respond with resistance to life, or if you're courageous enough to see it as such, or if that's true for you, not see it as such, because it doesn't necessarily always have to be like about divinity. But the point is, it's a completely natural response for you to resist faith if you've had bad experiences with it in the past. It would, kind of like if you almost drowned as a kid in the ocean, it would make sense why as an adult you don't want to go near the ocean. So kind of like how the cards are saying, it's like, yes, life, whatever you feel guided by and assured by, is demanding a bit of faith, is demanding a bit of belief, is demanding that you move in a way that reflects that belief in whatever it is that you're being asked to believe in. But you're afraid of doing those things because in the past when you did so, there was X consequence, whatever that was. And what these 2 cards are saying to you specifically is that as sad as it is, or as hard as it is, or as difficult as it might be to hear, that is on purpose. Now, I am not saying, be very careful with how you interpret what I'm saying, because I am not at all saying that if you went through some horrible, tragic pain and someone there specifically hurt you in a way that is like horrible and traumatizing and disturbing, I'm not saying that had to happen and that happened on purpose. And no, I'm not. That's not the type of reader that I am. That is not my ministry. I am not about that at all. What I'm saying is how, going back to that whole message of how in your specific life, for your specific circumstance, and this is true for all of you, you need faith. The way that like things, for you to get the best possible outcome, faith is required. And for you to have had experiences that make it so you have a resistance to faith, it's not that what happened in the past that had to happen, but rather the fear that you have around faith, and therefore the courage that it takes to engage with it. That's the point. The courage, the movement away, because courage is the only way that you're going to be able to really stand up away from this comfortable norm and move in a way that is, in essence, a resistance and a rebellion from the norm that you've been in. And again, that sacrifice that we're talking about, whatever, and in this case being you sacrificing that control that you've established so that you're never really strung up and bound to something again. And therefore the rebellion being you then taking a grasp of that rope that you're being pulled to take, the faith, the belief, and surrendering to it. Surrendering control. So, and not complete control, just not control. That's not the right word, but surrendering your need for control of surrounding faith, surrounding your skepticism. Like how, okay, kind of how I started the reading out, like if you had that bad thing with faith in the past, that it set the precedent where the ends justify the means, that your skepticism is the means by which you maintain your healing. The sacrifice is then you kind of loosening control over the maintenance of that healing, because it comes with an understanding. And when you come to the understanding that the surrender of control, of maintaining the things that keep you safe, when you understand that you keeping yourself safe is actually hurting you more than letting go and allowing things to kind of fall how they may, allowing yourself to be guided as you're being guided, until that happens. And that's the courage that it takes to really look at those things and realizing, accepting, hey, this isn't what I wanted. This actually isn't what I want, and I want more for myself. And you know what? I'm fine. When you get to that point where you're really seeing things as dire as they are, and you're also seeing clearly that you do have a faith to grasp onto, you do have something to believe in, there is something worth believing in, and you allow yourself to believe in that thing and be guided by it, then that's when you've engaged with that courage, is when you'll that courage is the clover, is the means by which you'll arrive at wherever it is that you're headed, at that transformed situation, at the blessings that you're trying to create for yourself, even whatever those things are, if those are tangible things. But the transformation and the blessings that you're moving to, for all of you, is going to be that faith that you've now engaged with, and you've gotten the results from that faith, the desirable results, the ones that you wanted, the ones that you maybe didn't have in the past if you were trying to engage with faith in the past and it wasn't working for you for whatever reason. Now that you're doing it correctly, doing it in a way that it's catalyzed by that courage, then you're getting now the results that you've been looking for. But again, that won't happen until that faith, until that courage is applied. Okay, that was a lot. This is a heavy reading. Let me just take a moment to congratulate you on how far you've come, on how much you've accomplished, and that you've survived, whatever it is that you've survived. That's worth commending. And none of this reading, nothing of what I'm saying is trying to be like, oh, you ended up in the wrong place because you don't have faith. No. Where you're at is where you're at because of the decisions that you made with the information that you had at the time that you had it. And that's always the best thing that we can do. And so that's always the right thing. Even if it comes up with bad results, if you didn't do it with the intention of getting those bad results, then it wasn't a bad thing that you did. That's a bad luck of the draw. That's just things, again, not everything's in our control. And sometimes when we make decisions, we really see that. So my whole point with just this moment is to recognize that with these cards are basically saying that divinity, or, it is divinity because I'm getting these readings from divinity. So whether you believe in it or not, divinity does see you and your circumstance. And if that's not enough for you, or if that's just not something that you engage with, I see you. I'm just a stranger on the internet. You don't know me. But these cards, I mean, I had to really sit and think about a little bit how I wanted to word this and where I wanted to take it, because I recognized the depth that we were kind of getting into with, you know, that trauma that we were talking about, the things in the past that we're trying to move away from. Like, trauma, religious trauma is a very real thing for me. So like I did have to sit in a little bit and be like, let me get myself out of it and deliver this as best as I can, but also engage with those experiences that I had in a way that I can now because I've done the work. And so I'm speaking from a place where obviously my faith did shape itself into something different. The faith that I grew up in that caused all of that trauma is no longer the faith that I engage in, but I found my way back to my faith, and that was my experience. But for you, regardless of whether you had some, like, a religious thing in the past, what's true across the board is that faith, belief, it does generate good results. And yeah, I know that, like, it's easy for me to say that I'm a tarot reader, but it's like, don't buy it. You know, just because I'm a tarot reader and I believe in things and have faith, that doesn't mean everything's glorious all the time. I still have the hard days that everybody else does. But faith and belief, again, regardless of what you're applying it to, it is a proper motivator. It is something that provides a light, regardless of how much darkness there is in our life. So why not engage with it? To close out this reading, let's get into the mini Divi card, which is this cute little deck I got. I just liked it very much. It's like ghosts, and I like the art on it, and I felt it was appropriate. We have Forest Spirit. Seek nature, and it will in turn make you grow in the best ways. So, okay, that could be true for you specifically, where it might be good for you to get out into nature and engage with it more and learn something from the ways that nature moves, which is so differently than our calculated, socially acceptable ways of moving. It could be something about that of, oh, okay, yeah, kind of like how in nature there's wilderness, which is a complete contrast to the norm, the status quo. And so moving wild, moving differently than what's expected of you. Yeah. I'm just going to leave that there. It could very well be true that you're being asked to get out into nature. If you feel like that's something that like really calls to you, go do it. You'll be surprised how much there is for you out there. Not only to learn and see, but to experience. And that in and of itself might guide you to, because I mean, look, we have like a butterfly and mountains and like, yeah, okay. So there could be something about you getting out into nature, like for real, like actual nature, whatever that is for you, whatever you have access to. But at a more intuitive level, at a deeper level, true for all of you, is moving wild in that, not in a way that's like uncontrolled or unintentional, but rather in moving wild as in contrast to the status quo, to the expectation, to the norm that you're currently in. My friend, I really hope that this helped, and I hope to catch you on the next one.